2023 Chicagoland home prices. Is the sky falling? Are we about to see a massive amount of foreclosures hit the market, creating downward pressure on home prices leading to a crash? Well, stay tuned because what you're about to find out might not match what you're hearing on the news. And it will surprise you. Hey everybody, Paul Cionczyk here, your favorite Chicagoland Realtor. And today we're going to help you make sense of some of the news stories you may be seeing about the housing market to make you a more educated homeowner. So first up, is the sky falling? Well, check out this Moody's Analytics article showing you the share of metro areas that are overvalued as a percent. And we can see compared to the last housing bubble, we've actually surpassed that percentage. So according to Moody's, they say many of these highly overvalued markets may now be primed for price depreciation. This depreciation will likely not, however, be a crash like we saw during the Great Recession. We are expecting house prices to retreat between 5 and 10% in the most overvalued markets. If there is a recession, drops will be higher, between 10 and 20%. So again, here we see Moody's is expecting a 5 to 10% drop in the most overvalued markets. And if we go into a recession, that could be higher, 10 to 20%. Okay, so Moody's feels that the housing market is overvalued in a big portion of the US. Now, foreclosures, are we about to see a massive amount of foreclosures? Well, according to this Adam Data article, US foreclosure completions increase annually by 64% in November 2022. So looking at that at face value, 64% is a huge number, right? As an increase compared to last year. But consider what's been going on. We had a foreclosure moratorium during COVID, which put a stop to foreclosures, and now we're seeing them pick back up again. So that 64% increase over last year may seem like a big number, but if we look at it in perspective and we check out this New York Fed infograph showing you how many foreclosures we've had over the past 20 years, we actually have some of the lowest foreclosures we've had right now over that 20-year period. And the current amount of foreclosures, yes, may be up, but are such a small fraction of what we actually went through during the last housing crash. So you could see we peaked at around 2 million foreclosures back then. So 70 to 80,000 foreclosures now is really just a very small amount. And historically, we've always seen a small percentage of homes end up in foreclosure. And that small amount makes sense because if you consider what's happened to home prices over the past 2 to 3 years, we're up 25, 30%. Some markets are up 40, 50% compared to where they were 2 to 3 years ago. So really, if anybody bought a home before then, they've seen a pretty strong rise in their equity, in the amount of money that they've got put away in their home. And so many people that may be in a position right now where they can't make their payments are in a very strong position to be able to put their house on the market, get it sold, and actually walk away with money, if not break even. So very little incentive to go through a foreclosure process to put that ding on your credit. Okay, so we don't quite see the sky falling yet, and foreclosures are extremely low. Let's check out this one from Redfin. Housing market predictions for 2023, a post-pandemic sales slump will push home prices down for the first time in a decade. We expect home sales to sink to their lowest level in more than a decade in 2023 as high mortgage rates keep housing costs up and prevent people from moving. High homeowner equity and a resilient job market will stave off a wave of foreclosures. If we dig deeper into this article, there's a silver lining in here for the Chicagoland market. Check this out. So Redfin predicts the U.S. housing markets that are likely to hold up best in 2023. And on this national list of top 10, 3 of them are the Chicagoland market. We've got Lake County, Illinois, we've got the Chicago, Illinois market, and the Elgin, Illinois market. So that's great news for the Chicagoland home market. And if you really think about what home prices did over the past 2 or 3 years, prices across the U.S. skyrocketed in some cities, and they went up in Chicago, but at a much more stable pace. Check out this graph, which shows you what prices did from the last housing bust, 2008, pulling back, bottoming in 2013, and going upwards from there. And we can see that prices kind of moved sideways from 2015, 2016 till about the pandemic till 2020, if we see there, really we saw 2 or 3% price growth only. And then it wasn't until after the lockdowns were lifted that we saw prices take off. And that really correlates with people's need for more and different people's ability to work remotely, and of course, interest rates going down and down and down from where they were at. Rates were at roughly 4.5% in 2018, 2019, and we pulled back to below 3%, which is the lowest that we've seen ever. And that's helped push prices up 20 to 25%, like we see in this graph. And the lower the interest rates went, the more people went out and bought up homes. They made sense for investors to turn them into rentals. They made sense for investors to rehab them, for people to be able to move up because money was so cheap. And what that's done is it's driven down the amount of available homes for sale, as can be seen by the month's supply of available inventory right now being less than 2 months, which is how long it would take to sell through all the homes available at the rate buyers are buying them. And that's extremely tight inventory, which will definitely play into what happens next. Compare and contrast that to a market like Phoenix, Arizona, which now has more homes on the market than were on the market pre-pandemic in 2019. That's pretty crazy considering right now we are at historically all-time low on the amount of available homes for sale in the Chicago market. So you can see how looking at some of these national articles, you might not get the full story of what's truly going on locally here. And even in the Chicago market, one city or one neighborhood may not necessarily reflect what's going on in a different part of the city. You look at that downtown market and people didn't have to work from offices, they were working remotely. We saw elevated levels of crime in the news, and that definitely swayed people away from living in the city. So you look at what home prices have done, and some of the prices in the city were backwards in 21, 2022 still compared to what they were pre-pandemic. We saw prices of some condos selling for less in 2022 than they did in 2018. And so we look at those markets and things will likely be better in 23 than they were in 21 and 22. I don't think they're going to be phenomenal. I don't think they're going to be as strong as what we saw in pre-pandemic yet. But there's definitely value to be had if you look at some of those city markets, especially on some of the larger high rises. Compare that to a market within the city further away, like Lincoln Park, where inventory is extremely low and prices did go up. And you really have a tale of two cities within the same city. And we saw that in the increase in prices for the suburban market compared to the Chicago condo market. So are we going to see a crash? Yes, but not in the way that you're thinking. I think that that crash that we're going to see, and you may see in some of the headlines, is really going to be from home sales and not home prices. And what's the distinguishing factor there? I think we're going to see a pretty big decrease in the amount of homes that are going to sell in 2023. And you're going to see 15, 20, 25% decrease in the amount of homes sold, but the amount of homes doesn't reflect the price of homes. Remember, the prices are very hyper-local, even within specific cities. So some areas in the U.S., you're going to see prices come down, but I think the U.S. overall is just going to see less homes sell. After the pandemic lockdowns were lifted, we saw people rush to go buy homes and take advantage of the low interest rates. And during 2021 and 2022, we saw that in the home prices increasing, and that was because the level of demand far outstripped the level of supply. The amount of people that were selling homes was far less than the amount that were buying homes. And in 2023, I think we're going to start seeing the amount of homes for sale finally start to come up, but the amount of homes that will actually sell is still going to be extremely low. I think that's good news for buyers in that compared to 21 and 22, I think homes are going to be on the market a longer amount of time. I don't think we're still going to go to a balanced market like we had pre-pandemic. I think we're just, a far ways away from that. But, every home that you looked at in 21 and 22, you'd expect to go for asking price or over, and maybe had 15 or 20 offers, and good luck to you. So from a seller's perspective, it's going to feel slower than it has over the past year or two. As a seller, you won't be in the driver's seat the same way you were back then, in that the buyer had to give you everything that you had asked for on a golden platter and then some. So, what does all that mean for Chicagoland home prices? Well, again, prices are hyper local. So, let me know what area you're interested in. We can have a discussion on that. But I think that the biggest driver we're going to see in home prices is going to be dictated by interest rates. Mortgage interest rates skyrocketed from 3% at the beginning of 2022 to over 7%. They peaked in October and pulled back the rest of 2022. But what's going to happen in 23 to mortgage interest rates is really going to dictate what the market does for affordability. And so if we see rates go back up above 7% and the amount of homes on the market, the inventory increases, that will likely put downward pressure on prices. Whereas if we see rates continue to pull back with continued low inventory compared to what we've seen normally, then we'll likely see prices move sideways, maybe pull back a little bit. Honestly, some analysts predict that prices in the Chicago market can continue moving forward. I don't have a crystal ball, but we definitely saw prices go up quite a bit, and I think that from my experience with interest rates being higher and inventory slowly increasing, that should help keep things moving sideways more so than pushing up. And again, if rates do go up and you combine that with a recession and more job loss, and that likely creates downward pressure for prices. Home prices are seasonal in the Chicagoland market, so we see prices increase in the beginning of January and continue increasing through April, May of the year. So the homes that go under contract in April, May tend to have the highest prices, and we see those homes close in June. So if somebody gets a home under contract in April, May, they are usually closing, 30 to 45 days later, and June tends to peak in terms of the home price for that year. And then we usually see things pull back through the rest of the year as people that needed to move made their move, and sellers that don't want to be on the market through fall and winter begin reducing prices faster to make sure that they get their home sold so they're not stuck on the market during the fall and winter. And then the cycle continues. Now, what happens this year I think is going to be driven by interest rates, like I mentioned. If rates go up, that's definitely downward pressure. If we see a recession, that's downward pressure. But otherwise, we're probably moving sideways. We're definitely going to be keeping an eye on the spring market for 2023, as if we see weakness there, that likely will play through the rest of the year. And if we see weakness in the spring market, that will push prices down likely through the rest of the year. So if you're not subscribed to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with what's going on. Thanks for watching, and if you're considering making a move and want more info on a specific area, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help, and if it's not a market that I work with, I'm happy to connect you with an expert in that area to help make sure that your move is as smooth as can be in 2023.